Now gating E as in
Time for what?
No. No, I vowed I'd never play Wii games again after what happened 3 years ago.
Why? You know, that might have actually been the time I ate chicken liver by accident, now that I think about it. The Wii Shop Channel was home to a lot of different WiiWare titles with varying levels of quality. On one hand, the store just had piles upon piles of pure garbage that only served as shameless cash grabs. But on the other hand, you did have those short but sweet gems buried under that pile. There were developers that genuinely tried the best that they could to make a WiiWare title that would be worth your money. However, considering that this was Nintendo's first job at creating an online shop for downloadable content, and knowing how Nintendo has and still struggles with creating online services, it definitely wasn't without its limitations. You could only put 40 megabytes onto a WiiWare title for it to be added to the store, which made it a real challenge for developers to make quality games for it. There was even going to be a WiiWare title for Super Meat Boy until the developer canceled the project, criticizing just how small the sizes of the game needed to be for it to be sold online. It was for this reason there weren't a lot of good WiiWare titles. The Wii Shop Channel was either for purchasing virtual console games, or for those few interesting titles that couldn't be found elsewhere. One of these games was known as Jett Rocket, a 3D platformer released exclusively for the online store. It was developed by Shinen Multimedia, a German video game development company. Oh wow, they actually developed Fast RMX on the Switch, that's pretty interesting. I remember playing the hell out of that game during the beginning of the Switch's lifespan where the console didn't have many games. They also developed Garfield's Nightmare? That's pretty weird. What the hell? Why did this game have an amusement park ride themed after it? Apparently it was branded as a Garfield themed ride until 2020. God damn, that was not a long time ago.
I just fucking missed it!
Who knew making a DS game could spiral into that? But anyways, yeah, Shinen was making a lot of other WiiWare titles which had similar qualities, such as Art of Balance and Fast Racing League. When Nintendo announced the doomsday of the Wii Shop service, I made sure to scout for as many quality titles as I could. What made me choose Jett Rocket at the time was that it seemed like a pretty good 3D platformer from now I was hearing, and there weren't really a lot of 3D platformers on the service at all. So, seeing how interesting that was to me, I decided to buy it. I actually didn't play it until now because I wanted to make a video on it since I thought it would be pretty interesting. So, let's see what it's all about. I'm going in blind, so I think this should be interesting. Huh, it's using this weird computer cursor for the Wii remote pointer on the screen. A very interesting decision. We choose our Mii and head straight to the beginning of the game. And honestly, the story is so simple that all I really need to do is show you the cutscene.
Hi, I'm Jett Rocket, Planetary Inspector. Here on my patrol hub, I look out for any threats to the planet. What's that?
You didn't put any effort into the falling animation, it's just a static pose as it's rotating while it's falling. Long time no see? Is that the first thing you say to someone when they plummet from the sky?
Hey Ahmed, long time no see. When's the next video?
The fuck's your problem? Dolphin says that we're just attacked by the Power Plant POS, or PPP for short. What the heck is a POS? Apparently it's a body of men surrounded by a sheriff to enforce the law. That sure doesn't sound like what we're talking about.
Howdy fellas, today we're gonna pollute the planet and shit. Lawfully, of course.
Yeah, of course. Why not?
Essentially all they want to do is drain energy and pollute the planet, and we need to stop them because they suck. The PPP absorbs energy directly from the power generators. Wait, then where are we unlocking them? Wouldn't that just set them up to take the energy? This makes no sense.
Oh my god, this is horrible!
Oh, that shit hurts so much.
Apparently, the generators also warp us back to our ship, so like, I guess it wasn't that big a deal that we got knocked off, we could just come back. Then the dolphin dives into the inner core. That story was incredibly simplistic. You could tell they just whipped up something really quickly just to get the game going. I understand it's a simple platformer, it doesn't really need much of an opening, but I feel like they could have done just a little bit more to explain things, to provide more of a backstory. Anyways, the game quickly teaches us the controls that we can use with Jett Rocket. We can move around with a nunchuck analog stick as well as control the camera with the D-pad. We also have a roll move that can be performed by shaking the Wiimote to break stuff and hurt enemies. There's also this ground strike move that can be activated by shaking the Wiimote except in the air. It's mainly used just to push these buttons and lock onto enemies. Afterwards, we work back to the spaceship and enter the first level. We taught a little more of the controls before getting into the meat of the game. Man, you can tell they took a fair amount of inspiration from Mario Galaxy with this game. The way you talk to NPCs, the way the level gives you a sneak peek at what you're about to traverse before starting it. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, so let's hope they don't take it too far. The last bit of controls we're given shows us how to take out enemies by using the roll move and introducing us to the jetpack fuel mechanic. And wow, they didn't even try to hide the fact they used T-pose for this animation. I mean, I guess it works, but they could have been a little bit more creative than that, let's be fair. So yeah, throughout the levels you'll find these jetpack fueling stations. You'll need to shake the Wiimote to fuel up, and afterwards be able to use the jetpack for some ease with platforming, and to get to places you normally couldn't otherwise. The jetpack will propel you upwards until it reaches a height limit from where you jumped. After that, you'll be able to hover around until you let go of the A button in the air. If you don't have any fuel, then the jetpack will just let out gas of smoke. Okay, so now we can start with the actual game here. Let's see. It's strictly forbidden to dig for hidden treasures. No jetpacks allowed here. Next, we talk to this robot, and it tells us to get 4 batteries to power this artifact. Apparently, artifacts use double A's in this world. Very interesting. So we do that, and then we go inside its mouth, and then boom, we're at a different location. We got more platforming challenges, and then the level ends. Well done.
What the fuck? It's not multi-purpose?
There's also a final level, but we'll talk about that in due time. There's a basic plains world, a snow world, and a jungle world. Each level's main goal is to simply get to the end of the stage to win. However, you'll also notice these, what are these called again? Solar cells. Huh. They only mention these things by name once in the whole game. I don't know why they didn't clarify what their purpose was. Anyways, these solar cells will be put across each stage in the game. You'll find them pretty abundantly on your way to the goal, but there are a lot of secret areas to find solar cells along the way. Sometimes you'll need to use your jetpack to get to those places that have these. Pretty much the only purpose of these cells is to unlock upcoming worlds that need to be unlocked after beating a boss in each world. While I more often than not like to collect them anyways, because they're just there and they're collectibles, but there really isn't much reason to go out of your way to get them just because they have one sole purpose, which is to move on to the next stage. I don't know, like, maybe they could have used the cells to unlock hidden stages on the ship or something. I know it's a WiiWare game and they can't make it too big, but maybe 3 extra levels or a whole other world that isn't part of the main story could be given as a reward for going out of your way to get the cells. And of course, there is a small variety of obstacles and methods of maneuvering through the level. Jett Rocket has a fair amount of concepts that I think could be interesting. Unfortunately, the level design can range from okay to boring to completely frustrating. In fact, my main gripe with this game is that it's way too safe. It doesn't push its idea far at all. It really just feels like a straight line with obstacles that just exist and don't do much more than that. Take these bombs, for example. Which they totally stole from Mario, by the way. A lot of levels have these bomb dispensers that you'll need to use to move to the next part of the level. But that's the thing, it doesn't really feel like much more than that. You place a dispenser in a glass case that you need to destroy, or a container that you need to throw the bomb into, and then you just move on. There really is little to no challenge involved with gimmicks like these. I mean, just look at this ice level. You have to collect these 4 batteries on top of these electric lines, and they're just freaking sitting there! Jetpack fuel is literally around the corner, and you can just hover above them safely without needing to worry about a goddamn thing. One of the jungle levels, there are these magnets that they give you to zipline across gaps, but they only use these for the sake of using it. The most variety they give you with it are these geysers that hurt you, so you just have to time your jumps instead. This is simply not enough to make a platformer interesting. Why even bother having obstacles in a platformer when there's little to no effort that's needed to maneuver around them?
I just replaced those batteries.
It is I, the Master Pajama Man. I have stolen your batteries and hid them across the house. You'll never find them now.
It's right here. Look at what's on the ground. I don't think he even fucking tried to hide it.
I really hate to say it, but it honestly just feels like the developers took a lot of ideas from the 3D Mario games and tried to implement them themselves. You even have that moving platform thing that changes the direction it moves in depending on where you step on it from Mario 64. The problem isn't necessarily that they're taking inspiration from them, but they just don't understand what made them so fun in the first place. The fact that platform from Mario 64 wasn't really that much of a fun part of the game to begin with. In my opinion, it's just a really dated idea that just feels really clunky when there are better ways to traverse through an environment. But because it was in a Mario game, they decided it'd be a good idea to implement it in Jett Rocket. Same also goes for the bombs I mentioned earlier. In Mario Galaxy, the bombs were used in a way that made doing the same tasks as Jett Rocket more exciting. For example, in this part of Battle Rock Galaxy, there are these chain chomps rolling across the planet. You need to get the bomb to the glass case in time, whilst avoiding those chain chomps to get to the next part of the game. But that isn't where it stops. You can also throw these bombs onto the chain chomps to take them out, and make your traversal a bit easier, while also rewarding you with star bits. This gives the game more variety with choice within the player, and allows them to choose how hard they want that section of the game to be. And then afterwards, it doesn't overstay its welcome and blast you to the next challenge the game has to offer. Jett Rocket, they have these parts of the game where you have to go back and forth with the bombs to put them in a place they need to be put in. These conveyor belts don't do anything for the player except make your traversal fast enough for you to make it in time. It's just this barren wasteland where you have to gradually do these chores. It also really doesn't help that the bombs explode on impact with everything. It's already really difficult to precisely throw the bombs wherever you want it to. Having it explode on impact just makes it more likely for you to need to go all the way back just to get another one and do the same thing. When you try to copy something, you can really only be just as or less great than the thing you're copying from. If you really want to be successful with your idea, it can be good to find your footing through getting inspiration from what the big guys already accomplished. But the effort to be something more than that, make something that makes your idea truly unique, is what can make that idea so special.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you in the back. Thank you.
Okay, now onto the life system.
Where do I even begin?
In each level, you start off with 3 hearts. Getting hit by anything will cause you to lose a heart. However, there are heart pickups that the game will sometimes give to you along the way if you look for them. For half the game, I really didn't need to pay much attention to it since losing health wasn't really a common until it got to the snow stages where it really started to get on my nerves. Most enemies really just kind of exist on the stage. You'll be seeing a bunch of these robots roam around doing basically nothing. They do charge at you, it really isn't at a speed that's alarming or anything. You can really just roll into them once or twice to destroy them. However, the snow world introduces these missile versions of them, as well as this thing that slams on the ground when you get near it. These 2 enemies really could have been designed better. Whenever you try to take out this missile shooting one, there's a chance they'll be shooting a missile at the same time, which can cause this trait to occur. The reason this happens is because there isn't any loading missile animation. It's just shooting slowly as it comes out of the robot. A loading animation on, for example, a Mario Bullet Bill shows the player when they need to prepare to dodge the attack. But without that information, the player just won't know that it's coming, and they'll take the hit even if they don't see the missile, which can become really annoying since you only get 3 hearts per level. As for these, tin tacos, sure, they really are just there for the sake of pissing you off. They're put in places that'll restrict your path or guard some collectibles. I don't know, it just feels like there isn't a good way to avoid them. I tried using my roll attack and moving in and out, but it's still pretty easy to get hit by them due to how quickly they'll slam to the ground, as well as follow you as you move around them. The main reason these small annoyances become gigantic pains in the ass is because of how punishing this game is when you lose all your hit points. You have to restart the entire level over again every time you lose a life, with the sole exception being when you reach a boss. This becomes incredibly frustrating because what used to be kind of a leisurely stroll now a stressful experience because Jett Rocket suddenly becomes this glass cannon character where making any kind of mistakes becomes devastating. Due to this game's level design, there are some places where you can get screwed over with hit points way too easily, which makes it feel like the challenge of this game is coming from the wrong places.
I have been shot! Ew! 1 hit! Bullshit!
This is especially an issue with the jungle levels. Good god, this has got to be the worst world of the bunch. There's just so many terrible enemies and design choices that make it really infuriating. These saucer enemies are absolutely horrible. The ones that just roam around and shoot when you're under them are fine, but dear god, the other variants that go out of their way to hover above you and zap you can become really fucking annoying. The only way to take them out is to use your jetpack to go above them and slam onto them. But because they can move around so easily, it's really not that hard to just miss your target because the game doesn't know what to do in that situation. This lock-on move simply wasn't built for moving objects, and that's what makes it so fucking irritating. And unfortunately, what multiplies this issue is the terrible knockback this game has when you get hit. I found myself literally getting comboed from getting hit by enemies in this game, which is absolutely devastating because of how little hit points you're given alongside the really harsh penalty for losing a life. It really makes you think what the hell the point of a life system was if a game basically gives you the same outcome except you get booted to the hub world. This game really needed a checkpoint system of some kind.
Bullshit!
Fuck, I just did this. What the fuck was the point? What's the point? What's the point? What's the point? Another thing that makes it really easy for you to lose health is the camera. You use the D-pad to move it left and right, and it works for the most part, but sometimes it'll just not cooperate with you. While there wasn't many, there were instances where I had to take leaps of faith just because the camera wouldn't move where I wanted it to. There were also some weird moments where the game decided to have fixed camera angles. It wasn't a big deal or anything, but it did kind of feel awkward. Then there are the gimmicks. I really am not a fan of them. I was honestly pretty surprised to see Nintendo Life's ancient review of the game praise them for the variety, because I really didn't find them all too fun. I feel like they break up the gameplay in a really abrupt way. For example, an entire level in the first world consists of just using this jet boat to get to the end of a level. I think it's trying to be that one water stage in Mario Galaxy or something, but it honestly really just feels basic. It's pretty much just a normal jet skiing level with a few mines and ramps as well as solar cells to collect, and that's pretty much it. It's pretty odd how it's just a really quick one-off level that never gets put into use again.
Like, I mean, seriously, why would anyone make a piece of their media switch genres midway for no reason? It's just absolutely absurd. Get out of my fucking house.
I shall now place a curse on your video.
No. Wait, that's mine.
Doesn't have your name on it. No, it actually does, like on the back.
Fuck you. Don't.
Hello everyone and welcome to the mukbang break. Today I'm finally through with the Ahmed lifestyle. Not only is it super uncool, but it's so close-minded. I want to try new things. And to mark the occasion, I'm gonna eat this probably pork pepperoni pizza slice and this unnamed beverage of unspecified alcoholic container. So without further ado, bottoms up. Yummy. Make sure to smash that report button for sensitive content. And I mean, like, what's the worst that can go wrong after this?
And you did it again! You really gotta stop eating the crust.
Similarly, there's this hoverboard in the snow world that you need to transverse over ice ramps to progress through the level. Unfortunately, the controls are really loose. It can be really hard to align yourself with these solar cells. It feels a bit similar to the jet boat level, but here it feels more like you're steering in mud than the other one. Technically, the ramps are optional, but there are solar cells here, so you'll feel inclined to get them. I found that I was just trying to align myself just to boost off the ramp and get the solar cells, which just felt really awkward. This is basically the only part you need to use the hoverboard anyways, so it just makes you ask yourself, what the hell was the point? The thing is, loose and wonky controls and physics really don't have to be all that bad either. Logan Kart proved how they can be implemented in a way that gives players enjoyment. But when you apply that looseness to a challenge that requires precision, it just feels like it becomes frustrating rather than something that's oddly entertaining. And then there's the glider sections. I do like the idea of gliding across levels to get some parts faster. Hell, that's what Mario Odyssey did, and that felt great. However, here it just feels so so awkward to control. You have to use the control stick to move slowly to the left and right and glide upwards and downwards. Pulling yourself up gets rid of your meter quicker, which can make it difficult to get solar cells on the way down. It also limits creativity with where the player just wants to go. I really don't know why they gave this thing a meter anyways. They just need to make sure that gliding upwards wasn't too broken and it would have worked fine. Giving the player more freedom can go a long way to make this a lot more fun. The last thing I want to talk about in this game are the bosses, which I actually do like. At the end of every final level in each world of the game, you'll encounter a boss which will be one of these big PvP robots. The first boss has got to be my favorite one. Kaiser Tai-Kai? Sure. The robot basically consists of a gauntlet of explosives and fire that you'll need to maneuver around, and use the bombs it throws around to destroy the barrier around it. I like this boss a lot because it really serves as a good test of your bomb usage abilities, as well as your skills of avoiding fire pillars and missiles. These were all elements that were present in the first world of the game, so having that be mashed into one boss was really fun. There's also a ton of movement involved because of the moving floor and sliding fire pillars, making maneuvering around the explosives a real challenge. The boss has a good difficulty. It's hard enough where it puts you on edge due to how much stuff is happening at the same time, while also not being super frustrating because all you need to do is hit it 3 times and the boss is over before you know it. The next boss is in the snow world. Herzog Isu, whatever. Okay, these names are really forgettable, man. Who's gonna remember these bizarre jumbles of sounds, especially based off of the bland robot designs in this game? Anyways, this boss is also pretty fun. There's this big fly swatter thing on the robot where if you're aligned with it, it'll smack down and cause you to lose a heart. Once it's down, you can perform a slam move or a roll attack to cause some damage. It also has these laser eyes, which you'll need to avoid, which I wasn't super fond of because of how confusing of a pattern they follow. The lasers intersect with each other while the robot is turning around, which makes it a bit hard to know when I'll need to jump to avoid it. However, I did find the jetpack was quite useful to hover over the lasers, which I did like. It forces you to not over-rely on using the jetpack to avoid its attacks, and only use it when necessary, because you might be stuck in a corner and need to use it at some point to avoid a death. In fact, at this point, I probably should have used the jetpack to avoid getting hit by the laser, but I held back because I noticed how little fuel there was left. What I didn't find so useful is when the swatting move suddenly had a shockwave effect on the ground at the last phase, which I thought was a bit frustrating. There wasn't any indication of a change in manner of attack, so I just got hit because I thought all I had to do was run away and then jump to do a slam move. Funnily enough, the knockback effect actually blew me all the way to the right where I could just do a roll move and deliver the final blow. Because of how confusing those events were, I didn't even notice there was a shockwave effect at all until I looked back over the footage. Another weird thing this level does is that it throws a bunch of hearts at you before you go to the boss, which is only done in this level for some reason. I have no idea why they didn't do that at the other levels, especially considering how unforgiving the heart system can be. The third boss is in the jungle area, and I kinda found it to be the worst one of the bunch because of its functionality. You're supposed to avoid this green sludge by hopping on these rocks until the robot slams its head against one of them. After that, you have to do a slam move to inflict damage. Later phases, it'll get these laser shots incorporated as well, which have a similar style of attack as the lasers from the previous boss, where it has lasers cross each other. The concept of this boss isn't too bad. I still think green sludge shots should have been telegraphed better at the beginning, since I lost a lot of hearts from those. The head slam move also has this shockwave effect, which is really not apparent to the player when it happens. There's simply not enough of a visual cue for the player to understand that, yes, I could have avoided these attacks since I've seen these kinds of things before in the level, and had enough knowledge about the elements of the robot's moves to avoid them. What really makes this boss a pain in the ass is just how dysfunctional it is on top of those other issues. The green water or sludge water or whatever you want to call it is really clunky in terms of how it works. In the level preceding the boss, you could only jump inside it twice before drowning and losing a heart. Besides the fact that this isn't really that clear upon first observing it, and this boss is just really inconsistent. This one time I just fell into it once and it took a heart from me without even giving me a chance to jump out. And directly after using that life, I fell into it again and it respawned me for some reason, only for me to try to use the slam move on it again, but failing because it slammed onto the part above the weak point rather than where the game told me it was locking onto. Another thing I really dislike about this boss is just how the boss shakes back and forth upon turning to where you are for a sludge shot. It just really makes it hard to tell where it's going to shoot, and I ended up jumping into the sludge a lot because I thought it was going to shoot where I was rather than the direction it was pointing at upon shaking back and forth when it was my position. The boss is laid out in a way where the sludge is shown to be shot at these rocks, so it can be really frustrating when it ends up shooting diagonally from that alignment. It makes me lose a few hearts I'm given, and gives me the game over because of how terrible the game design could be. After beating all 3 worlds, the 3 capsule thingies that power the ship or whatever are put in these tube things that unlock the final level of the game. You go into the portal, you're teleported to this big stage with a rematch against the first boss of the game. And it's just Mario 64 Bowser. Like, look, it's the same thing. Alright, I'll cut it some slack. It's not a complete rip ripoff. The first phase requires you to make your way to the back of the robot and dash into it, which is kind of the same thing as the Bowser fight. But the second phase has these missiles that it shoots at you while the robot is breathing fire, and you need to try to make your way behind him so it gets hit by its own missile. And the last phase, it's just the first phase, but it walks faster and you need to dash to get behind it instead of run. Like come on, it's just not that creative. But yeah, after every phase, you'll need to use the slam move to cause a hit point to it. Nope, you can't use a dash attack because that causes a hit point to you, even though it's not even that high and it looks like you can roll into it, but you really can't. And you lose a life for that. After that, it explodes and dies, and that's the end of the game. A cutscene plays where the dolphin from the beginning of the game tells you, yep, you really freaking did it. Good job, Jett. You're so great and stuff. Jett looks up to the sky as if it would add any extra emotional weight for the player, and then the end.
Well, that was something I wasn't expecting to be so underwhelming. When I first watched videos and the pieces of media online to see what this game was all about, all I heard was praise for the charming platformer on WiiWare that no other developer could do. So why doesn't it live up to those claims? Well, it's a WiiWare game. There really wasn't anything better on this service. No other developer really bothered creating a 3D platformer on the Wii Shop Channel. So when something like this does come on the service, people rush and give it praise for how unique it was at the time. But when you put the quirkiness of the game aside, it really is just a mediocre and obscure piece of gaming history.
Jett Rocket had a decent platforming concept. A cartoony character with a jetpack could work great in a platforming genre. Hovering mechanic could have been implemented in a more interesting way, and maybe there could have been different modes for the jetpack which have different functions and help force the player to be creative with how they use them. However, the game just got too reliant on trying to mimic what other successful 3D platformers did to replicate their success, and that's what killed the level design and creativity that would have existed otherwise. A lot of the time, it just feels like the game doesn't even know what it wants to be. It has linear level design, but also has meaningless collectible solar cells that are hidden in the level. It's a platformer, but has these weird gimmick segments or levels that exist for the sake of it. This flip-flopping between game decisions make the game feel extremely unconnected. The uninspired nature of the world and story of the game really don't help either. The sheer basicness of the plot kind of saps any charm or personality to the game. There's nothing that leads up to the moment where Jett gets knocked off to make us really give a crap about what's going on. Even in a game like Mario 64 where the plot is super simplistic, you still feel connected to it because you're constantly reminded of the setting you're in and the goal you're working towards. Peach is stuck inside the castle walls, Bowser is there constantly teasing you, but you don't have enough stars to open a door when you enter one of his levels. Every star feels like you're making progress to work up to that goal, and the player feels connected to the plot because of it, even if it is a really basic story. In Jett Rocket, the world doesn't feel connected to the story at all. Sure, you're given an excuse as to why you're doing what you're doing through the 2 minutes of the story you're given, but they deliver it so fast that it isn't anything memorable at all. It just feels like you're going through level after level just for the sake of it. Even getting knocked off of the ship feels empty because you just teleport back anyways, so what's the point? Why didn't the PvP just destroy the whole ship if it really wanted to pollute the world that bad? Beating the game doesn't even carry any weight to it either. On top of the final boss being extremely simple, the game doesn't give you more than a slap on the back for doing it. You don't feel like you actually save the planet because all you get is this message and Jett's goofy ass face. Even the music at the end sounds super unfulfilling. The game barely even gives a shit that you won. It's just this lack of energy the whole aura of the game has that makes this game feel as meaningless as can be.
Well, I have no reason to ever play that again. I will say they did make a sequel to this game on the 3DS, which I am interested in covering at the time. It seems that they actually updated the character design from the first game, which is pretty interesting, so I'm interested to see how it'll stack up to the original. Hey. Do you hear that?
You again! Time to deal with you once and for all!
Hey man, you done it. Good job.